On that note, I think this might be the last subject we may talk about on this episode here. I want to we've had a couple back and forth on this when we were talking on the phone. Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Looking at the time here on this here. So we got Ryan Garcia fighting Javier Fortuna July 9th. And then we got Devin Haney against Jorge Linares on May 29th. We talked about these fights here. What I want to bring up is a discussion that me and you had. You brought to my attention, you kind of felt that maybe Garcia, after these last signings here, that he could be or is possibly ducking Haney now.
And that's not just from the outsider looking in and stuff, and actually, getting some other perspectives as well. That's what the appearance looks like. Here's my beef with some of this. I mean, and we talked about a little bit last week in our pre-meeting, but never got to putting it on the show. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about it now, but I've had a chance to look at some more stuff, right? Stuff that I've pointed out, stuff that I've read. Others are looking at it, starting to look at it to the same degree, maybe about halfway there, right? They're waiting to see after these fights happen for each of these guys, for Garcia and Haney, if it looks like they're, if Garcia is ducking and stuff, right? Haney drives me crazy because he basically puts out a tweet after the fact about Garcia ducking and stuff. Basically, the tweet basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Garcia's rather fights the title eliminator instead of fighting the title holder, which on that tweet itself, if he had said that during the, a little bit after like the whole Garcia trying to go after a Pacquiao fight, or what was the other guy that Garcia was trying to fight?
Manny Pacquiao.
Matt Pacquiao and who else?
So we got Teofimo Lopez, Tank.
Lopez. Yep.
Lopez are the players for him right now in the stratosphere.
Exactly. So to me, that looked like that was Tank Davis. That was the one where he did the FaceTime conversation.
That was on Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, and when Tyson was trying to broker that fight next.
Exactly. So when he was looking for those fights, Haney was, to me, a little bit more quieter than he needed to. I think if he had said that tweet maybe somewhere before he took this Linares fight, then maybe I would have been like, okay, this is something I can probably jump on board with and say, hey, maybe Garcia is ducking. Then you kind of brought me back to earth a little bit on this and said, you know what? It isn't a duck based on the way the fights were lined up, right? So I'll put this one on Haney. He decided to take this Linares fight first instead of trying to broker the fight with Garcia next. If Garcia was stunned, whatever the reason was that fight didn't happen, at this point, it's already late. And that tweet came out late. Mm-hmm. So to me, let fight on your schedules. But after this fight, if I'm seeing Haney not fight Garcia and Garcia fight somebody else, Garcia's ducking.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, because they both got belts that should be consolidated. They both got WBC belts.
And I blame this to the WBC for this interim bullshit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you got Teofimo with a franchise belt.
Mm-hmm. That he don't gotta defend it. Exactly. You just pick and choose, like, okay, I do want to fight this guy in WBC when the money's right, technically.
Exactly.
I get to hold this belt. So you don't have to defend the franchise title, technically.
which I think is bullshit, because at the end of the day, if you're a title holder and you're being challenged, defend, damn it. And in this case, and then you got Haney, who's got a regular belt.
And this belt came about because Lomachenko wouldn't fight Haney.
Exactly.
So we're in a situation because we literally had a top guy. And here's the thing. I understand why Lomachenko did not fight Devin Haney. He ended up fighting Teofimo Lopez. So that was the bigger fight, and the more people knew about Lopez. So it makes sense. Like, if you were going to fight somebody, you cannot be mad at Lomachenko for doing that, right? Yeah. But the WBC created this situation here where that Devin Haney wanted the fight. He pressured the fight. He was on a full blitz. And then what did they do? Create the franchise champion.
Enabling this shit.
And then Teofimo won. So he became the franchise champion. And so then Ryan Garcia and some interim stuff going on, and he was got his interim belt. And so you have this big confusion that literally can be consolidated. These two guys fight. Now, just like you're saying here, when we had our conversation, there were many people thinking that Garcia's ducking. You seen Eddie Hearn, they had one-on-one conversations. He was really hyping it up, and they're both on DAZN. And the one thing that I pointed out was like, Garcia was hunting for the big fish. Now, you can say that, he screwed up and effed himself because he didn't get the fight, but you can't be mad at him for going after the big fish when the big fish were actually interested. Like Tank Davis, we talked about that, right? Devin Haney can't compete with that one. So maybe he should have dropped that tweet like, yo, I'm here too. So if y'all two don't fight, I'm here if y'all can't get the numbers right. That's what Devin Haney should have been doing, but he didn't though, right? So tanking, that didn't fall through. He went after Manny Pacquiao. If you're Devin Haney, you're like, oh, I can't freak with Manny Pacquiao. But he should have said, hey, if Manny Pacquiao falls through, like we talk about, because you know that fight might fall through, I'm right here. And so he didn't do that, and he got quiet. And I'm not mad at him for fighting Linares right now. That is a good fight for him. At his age, at his record, this is the next step up for him to know that he's legit. Like we know he's the real deal. We know he's real deal. We've seen his skills. But now he's going against a guy who has over 50 or 60 fights, 3-division champion, put in that work, a little bit older now. But he's no more tricks in the game than Haney's ever been alive in. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the type of fights that sets you up for the next part of your career. So I'm not mad at him for this fight here. It's May 29th. But you can't call someone out for ducking when you know that the other guy who's bigger than you, name recognition, value-wise, that you're not calling him out enough. Sometimes you got to be an idiot. Sometimes you got to be a brat. Sometimes you got to bang on someone's door and say, I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. Remember Chris Rock in Head of State when he went to debate? He said, I thought I told you that we won't stop. You got to keep pushing for the fight until you get it. You can't be quiet. And then when something happens, then you talk about it later. That's the problem. But now, they're fighting a month and a half apart. May 29th. And was it July 9th? That's less than a month and a half. That's just a month and a week. So if they both win, the WBC should say, hey, consolidate both these belts and you guys fight by the end of the year. Because it'll be July, September, August, September, October, these guys should be fighting. Way I look at it. But I can't call it a duck because Haney should have did more. Now, his promoter, I will give Eddie Hearn credit. He was talking to Ryan Garcia, when he was trying to put that out there. So he's doing his job. Now, Devin Haney, got to do your job. You got to win and talk.
Yeah, no, I think the dichotomy is interesting, right? You got Haney, who is the champion, a regular champion, having to call out and prior to that, Garcia wasn't, he was fighting for an interim title against Campbell. Wasn't a champion. Was calling out fights. You would think Garcia, who's looking for a title, would have just jumped on this. So he gets his interim title, right? Which I blame the WBC again for even having this a dumb idea. But be it as it may, Garcia should have been coming after Haney, anybody with the belt, right? And that's kind of what he did, right? Except it's interesting, right? You have Haney on your same network that you also fight on, but you went after Davis and Teal and Pacquiao first. I get it. Big dogs, big money. Yeah, I completely agree. But at the end of the day, after he had went after Davis first, Pacquiao next, Haney was nowhere out of his mouth after that. It was crickets after that.
True.
So based on the timeline of events that happened there, it bugs the hell out of me. I can see why some people, boxing journalists, sports writers would say Garcia is ducking if you follow that logic. But the fights have been made. I'll leave it at that. And they should be fighting each other before this year's over. Granted, they both win, which I'm expecting them to. But
I will say this, though, to add on to that. No Maddie, no Tank. You don't speak on Devin Haney, right? Devin Haney's kind of fight. You gotta talk it up a little bit longer. You can't go straight to it. Like from a money perspective, when you're, I know you don't like this, what I'm going to say here, but it should be next, right? It should happen now. But when you look at everything that happened with Ryan Garcia, with those two fighters, it makes sense that they both go the route they're going right now to set up this next fight now. Because the problem, though, is, like I said again, Devin Haney doesn't have the name yet. And they're trying to build this bigger. So if it happens 4 or 5 months later, I'm cool with that. If we're like this in 2022, we got a problem. Right? We have a problem. But for right now, Ryan Garcia is the talk of the town for the young fighters. Devin Haney wants Garcia's clout. At the end of the day, Devin Haney would not be here if he had the clout, extra personality, and the fanfare and the fans that Garcia has.
This goes on with our little side debates we have sometimes in our pre-meeting and our conversation when we talk about when to marinate and not to marinate.
Yeah.
And this is basically like a self-creating marinade. that could blow up.
It could. Yeah, that's what I said. I know you don't like it, but I'm not talking about Bob Arum with Juan Ma.
No.
That went on for 2 years. I can understand if you do these fights here and then you have a fight down the line, like before the end of the year. So basically, these guys been talking for this calendar year with Tank Davis and with Teofimo Lopez. So if you're within the same calendar year and you're talking and you got a little politics of these belts, I can understand it. But we get into the next year, and these three guys have not gotten a ring by summer 2022, we have a problem. And then they deserve the full onslaught, dogging, ducking, whatever it is that's going on at that time, that everybody from the box community should give that to him, whoever's at fault.
Yeah, I mean, but at this point, I'm not going to give it to Haney because he's got a belt. So at this point, Garcia,
they both got belts though. That's what I'm saying.
Well, interim.
It still got to be defended. You still got to pay the sanctioning fee. The WBC, I know, but the WBC, those wrinkles. You know that.
That belt don't count. That interim title.
Hey,
I don't mean
sanctioning fees count.
Hey, look.